Hey, this is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and I'm bringing you guys a review for Realms of Ancient War, which released for Xbox 360 last week and the PlayStation 3 today. And I spent the last few days playing through a good portion of this title on the 360. The gameplay is very similar to other loot collecting titles such as Sacred 2, but the way the game plays out is a little bit different. Instead of an open world that you can freely travel between the zones in, it feels a bit more linear in a sense that you have to select the areas from an overworld map that you can return to at any time. The game does a great job with the tutorials at the start, but even if you're brand new to this type of game, it's pretty easy to understand and pick up and play. Now, one feature I had an issue with was the way the game handles local co-op play, which is a lot different than any other title that I've played in the loot collecting RPG genre. If someone joins your game and plays with you for a little while, it doesn't save any of their progress on their own character. And I sent the publishers an email and asked them about this, and they did have a pretty good answer for it. They stated another player can join at any time and it will automatically level them up to the level of player 1. Each time the second player drops in, they get to choose any of the three classes, so that can certainly be used strategically depending on what stage you're on and what class that you're playing as. It also benefits player 1 in a sense that you're not having to sit around and wait for your buddy to play the game. It's a different way of doing things, but after it was explained to me in that sense, I guess I can see the benefits there. As far as combat goes, it does get a bit grind heavy, which is typical for this type of game. But massive waves of enemies flood on the screen from every direction all the time, and I did a lot of running in circles as I was waiting on recast times and mana to regenerate. Difficulty wise, I played through a good portion of the game on normal difficulty and I only died twice, so it wasn't that challenging. But keep in mind I was playing as the wizard, which very well could be the easiest of the three classes. There's also a harder difficulty on here, and I only briefly played on the other two classes just kind of to test them out. There is a tutorial at the start of the game that states if you run out of a certain item you do get a game over, which I had to do a little research on this matter to make sure it didn't mean what I first thought it would, which is that you would have to start the game over from scratch. But what it meant, basically, if you run out of these stones that allow you to respawn at checkpoints that are scattered throughout each map, instead of getting an actual game over screen that forces you to begin a new game, you just start at the beginning of that area again, which isn't that big of a deal. Even if you die on a boss, the maps really aren't huge enough to the point that you're going to have to spend a vast amount of time backtracking to get back to the boss. But again, this shouldn't be an issue anyways as long as you use common sense on normal or easy difficulty your first time playing. Now, I spent a lot of time playing titles similar to this. It's actually one of my favorite types of games to play. While I don't think it quite reaches the quality level of Dungeon Hunter Alliance, it is drastically better than the Dungeons & Dragons Daggerdale title, which I reviewed a few months back. There's a few main issues that I'm seeing with this game that may limit the enjoyment for some on here. For starters, the enemy variety feels a bit limited, and a lot of the story and loot is generic. Most of the story and quests are told in boxes of text with a few cutscenes scattered throughout. Graphically, the game looks great for this type of a title. The special effects for the magic spells on the wizard were top notch, and the environments had a good bit of detail in them, even if it does reuse a lot of the same textures. The in-game music was great, even if it's a bit toned down, but there was some room for improvement with the sound effects, as you're going to end up hearing the same battle cries from enemies over and over again. But my main gripe with this title is the fact there's no mini-map or easy way to tell which direction you need to head in to complete quests. You do have an arrow that points in a general direction if you click the analog in, but it doesn't take into consideration walls and pathways, so unless you're already near where you need to be, it doesn't help too much. There were a few instances that I had to run in circles trying to figure out where I needed to go, but it doesn't happen enough to really cause like a controller fling across the room. This title is definitely geared towards a specific crowd, and if you enjoy dungeon crawlers similar to this, you're most likely going to enjoy mowing down massive waves of enemies and working your way through the title's 8 to 10 hour campaign. From a technical standpoint, I didn't run across any issues worth mentioning, and the frame rate stayed pretty solid the majority of the time, so no complaints there. It's missing a few key components that could have pushed it to the next level, but it's still a fun title for what it is. Anyways, this is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and thanks for stopping by.